Crouch.
Hello, everybody out there, all 1,700 of you from 60 plus schools. Happy Halloween from the Laurence M. Gould. If you're wondering, I'm actually the polar vortex right now. I've been to both poles this year, spreading knowledge from pole to pole. But actually, my name is Holly Morin, and I'm a marine biologist and an education specialist at the Inner Space Center at the University of Rhode Island, back on the northeast coast of the U.S., which is clearly not where we are right now. I'm actually coming to you live from the bridge where they drive the boat. You can see third mate Alex back there. This is the Laurence M. Gould. We're currently in the infamous Drake Passage in the Southern Ocean. And how great is this that we're coming to you all live today? Thanks to the support of the National Science Foundation, the satellite technologies on board this vessel, and then the technologies back at the Inner Space Center. We're actually able to connect to you live. And that's the point of this project that we are currently running, the Antarctic Broadcast for Broader Impacts Through Telepresence project. We're trying to push that envelope. We've connected with lots of ships in different places at sea, using the technologies back at the Inner Space Center. We're trying to do that just like we are right now, live from the Antarctic, which provides its own suite of challenges. We have waves, which you can tell we're in a little bit of a choppy situation right now, but not too bad. Wind, snow, and then when you get into those high latitudes, those polar environments, you actually have a very small angle to which you can connect to a satellite. But what we really want to do, we want to connect all of you there with the scientists and other people that are doing really important work studying the Southern Ocean, as well as back in Palmer Station in the West Antarctic Peninsula where we just left yesterday. And actually I have two of those people joining me. You can tell they have really fantastic Halloween costumes, dressed up as a polar researcher and a field engineer. So why don't you guys, this is Dr. James Girton from the University of Washington, as well as Ryan Newell, why don't you say hi to all of these fantastic people out there, 1,700 students over that we have joining us. Let them know what you do at the University of Washington.
All right, thank you. I'm James Girton. I'm at the Applied Physics Lab at the University of Washington. I'm a physical oceanographer, and I study small-scale turbulence and air-sea interaction processes, especially in the Arctic and Antarctic regions.
Hi, everybody. My name's Ryan Newell. I'm a field engineer, so I'm the one putting the instruments together and helping deploy them over the side of the ship when it's time.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And so the National Science Foundation has actually been supporting polar research since the 1960s and sending folks down to Palmer Station, which was actually built, it celebrated its 50th anniversary, so in 1968. And Palmer Station is actually one of 3 U.S. research stations down in Antarctica. It's actually the smallest, and then you have McMurdo and then Amundsen Scott, which is right at the geographic South Pole. So one thing to remind all of you there, all 60 plus schools that we have connected today, is that this is a conversation. This is a really interactive process here. So you should have a little box to which you can type in your questions. We actually have Dr. Dwight Coleman, who's the director of the Inner Space Center. He is there and he's monitoring all your questions, and he's going to send them our way throughout the broadcast. And actually, I'm going to bring Dwight in right now and see if you have any initial questions for us.
Hey, Holly. Yeah, we have lots of great questions coming in from all the folks that are watching this broadcast. So thanks for taking these questions. The first one is from Marie in Rhode Island, and she wants to know, what is the average temperature there during this time of year?
In Rhode Island. So Marie would like to know, I don't know if you guys know what the average temperature is in this area in Antarctica.
Average temperature. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure I have a good number for that, but it's colder than it is at lower latitude. So yeah,
what's the current temperature
it's pretty close
right now?
to freezing. You know,
Yeah.
Average is probably fairly close to the freezing temperature. The water temperature right now is very close to the freezing temperature of seawater, which is about.
I would say, Ryan, if you want to take a spin and look at the screen there, we can see what the current temperature is for us right now.
It's actually gotten warmer. It's a whopping 1.1 degrees Celsius right now.
And that's what in Fahrenheit?
About 34 degrees Celsius
So it's like
Fahrenheit.
Tropical.
Very
tropical.
warm, yes.
So the one thing to remember is that when you're comparing the Arctic and the Antarctic is actually significantly colder than the Arctic. So even though we're hovering right about freezing, during the winter season, it goes much, much, much colder, significantly colder into the negatives when you're thinking about Celsius and Fahrenheit for that matter. So great question. When we're talking about measuring things and collecting data, the instrument that you guys deployed on the southbound transit is called a wave glider. And I would love for you all to explain that to all these students out there. What is the wave glider, and what is it measuring while it's at sea?
Sure. So the Wave Glider is an autonomous surface vehicle, or ASV. It's essentially a giant surfboard, and it's powered by the waves. So the wave action, we can steer it with those. And then it has solar panels to power the electronics. So it collects measurements such as wind speed and air temperature. And then we have a couple of measurements looking down that capture the ocean current and where that's going. And then it transmits some of that back via satellite. And then the rest we pick up when we recover the vehicle.
Fantastic. All right, Dwight, I think we're going to go back to you and grab another question.
Sure, great, thanks. This one's coming in from Anderson County High School in Tennessee, and they ask, how rough are the boat rides? I think they are referring to the smaller boat when you go out, but how rough is it there right now?
Sure. So this is from Anderson County High School. And if I remember, you all know Austin, who's on boat with us right now. I'm sure she says hello to all of you. They're curious about how rough is it on the boat? How has it been for us here on the vessel as we've been transiting back and forth?
Well, as you can see right now, we've managed to get into some rough conditions because we're heading across Drake Passage. This is the open ocean section between the Antarctic Peninsula and South America. And this is where a big current, the Antarctic Circumpolar Current, runs through. And also the winds kind of circle around Antarctica and tend to generate strong, big waves here all the time. So how big are the waves right now? Probably, 2.5 meters, 3.5 meters, so 10, 12 feet, something along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
we're moving around.
The Wave Glider you deployed, though, is meant to actually be out in these conditions. Why is it important to measure different ocean properties out here in the Southern Ocean?
I mean, we're especially interested in the wave and the wind interactions, and also the connections with the surface temperature. So this is in physical oceanography. There are connections between the turbulence in the boundary layers in the atmosphere and in the ocean, and the bigger waves can make more roughness on the surface, and that causes more stress, and so that has more drag on the wind. And then different temperatures can also create circulation in the atmosphere, which also affects the amount of wind at the surface. So there's kind of an interplay between the ocean and the atmosphere that we're studying. And it's important to get that right into the climate models that are predicting how the ocean is going to respond to wind and temperature changes in future climate scenarios.
Yeah, real important to remember that. Changes that are happening, in the poles, so the Arctic and the Antarctic, they're so very important, and they'll actually influence other things that are happening in the climate and the ocean with currents in other places. So even though they seem remote, they have a really big impact. Another question, Dwight.
Yeah, sure. Mixing it up quite a bit. So this next question comes from Mrs. Duncan from Sussex County Charter School for Technology in New Jersey. And she asks, what do you eat? And do you eat some of the things you find? How do you guys cook your food?
Fantastic question. So hello, Mrs. Duncan's class. They would like to know, what are we eating? How do we cook our food? Do we cook anything that we see?
Well, we are very lucky on board the Laurence M. Gould to have a couple of really good gifts on board, and so we get by the galley, and so we eat in the mess, which is the room that people eat in on ships.
The dining room on the ship,
and the kitchen is called the galley. We're pretty well treated here. What did we have for lunch? We had fish cakes. We had some soup and any other notable items. But yeah, it's been really good. And Palmer Station also has a very good I think.
Dinner today for lunch. So it was like turkey breast and mashed potatoes, Brussels sprouts, roasted sweet potatoes. No, we didn't like it one bit at all. It's and the one thing to also add is that at Palmer Station, they actually they're relying on this vessel, so the Laurence M. Gould, to bring their supplies, and that includes what they call freshies, which I love. That so fresh vegetables that's done, and fruit. That's something that is definitely a little harder to come by when you're down on station in Antarctica. So this ship will bring those supplies, and then they store it, and they have a pretty extensive kitchen on station, and freezers and other systems to keep as much food there as possible for them in dry stores as well. But yes, we've been eating well here on the ship. And no, as far as I know, we do not eat any of the food, any of the things that we see. No.
We're well past the days of when the explorers and expedition camps had to go and find their own food, or subsist on seal blubber or whatever.
Exactly. We're pretty well fed. Dwight, we'll take another question.
Great, thanks, Ali. The next one is from Eleni from Rogers High School in Newport, Rhode Island. She asks, how many different countries do the scientists come from that work on the ship or at Palmer Station?
Sure. So I think you cut out a little bit, but I got the gist of it. They were just curious how many different countries, I think, do the scientists and others come from that are either here on the ship or at Palmer Station?
I mean, as part of the U.S. Antarctic program and the U.S. base, it tends to be mostly American scientists who are here, but there are some collaborations with other countries. There's a pretty strong collaboration between the American and the British Antarctic programs. So there is a UK base nearby, and occasionally they will trade people. And if one of them needs something, they'll sometimes stop off by. There are a couple of other national bases around, but I think definitely the majority of the scientists at Palmer and on the Gould are all American scientists.
Yeah, and there are more than just those 3 research stations, as you kind of alluded to, on Antarctica. There's actually a whole host of other stations that are maintained by other countries all around the continent, and then even more field sites once the summer season kicks in. And you basically, Antarctica is very interesting when you think about how it's being organized per se, is that it's not militarized thanks to the Antarctic Treaty, and any country, as long as they sign into that treaty, they can then conduct research at a station or at site in Antarctica. So there are a whole host of countries that do participate in research there, and again, they are signatories of the Antarctic Treaty. Great question. Ryan, I'm going to ask you a question. So as a field engineer who's out here working on these technologies, what type of schooling? Maybe there's somebody in this fantastic group of 1,700 students out there that's thinking about it. What type of schooling, what type of advice maybe do you have for those students?
So my background is physics and chemistry. I was a physics and chemistry double major in college. But I think definitely the best advice I can give is to reach out to your professors, your teachers, find mentors, and just ask to help out. I mean, as a student, you might not be getting paid, or you might, it can be a hard experience, but there's a lot to learn and sort of figure out what's out there. So talk to your professors and try and get involved.
Dr. Girton, do you have anything to add to that? Grab the mic.
No, I think that sounds good. I think especially being able to find research projects that speak to the things you're interested in, like what you're excited about. Really, it's worth trying different things. Try some different. Get involved in some research if it's possible, if you can.
Yeah, and then even if you figure out that you don't like something, that's just as important as figuring out what you do like. Dwight, another question.
Sure, thanks. So Chief from Anderson County High School in Tennessee also asks, how many people are on board your ship, and where do you all sleep?
All righty. So how many people are on board our ship, and where do we sleep?
Do you know how many are?
I think there's probably roughly 30 of us on board right now. It sort of varies. We took a few more people down to Palmer Station, sort of transporting them. And
where do we sleep?
We sleep. So this ship has a bunch of cabins. So on a ship, you call your bedroom a cabin. And they're mostly 2-person cabins, but they have bunk beds in them, and they're quite comfortable. So even in the rough seas.
Yep, and we each have our own bathrooms inside, which is nice. Lots of storage and closets to put all your stuff. In my cabin, I have a desk with a chair, which is always great. But yeah, they're pretty spacious, and it's not just like the food. It's been pretty nice here on board the Gould. Another question, Dwight.
Sure. Tyler from Forest Park Elementary School in Rhode Island asks, and we had a question before about the air temperature, but this one's about the ocean water temperature. How cold is the ocean water in your current location?
Sure. Hey, Tyler at Forest Park Elementary School. Tyler is wondering about the ocean temperature, and what is the temperature of the ocean right now?
Well, actually, so around Antarctica, mostly the ocean is colder at the surface and then a bit warmer down below. So it's pretty close to the freezing temperature at the surface. So right now it's -1.5 to -1.8 degrees Celsius. And then down below the surface, it can get up to maybe 5 or 6 degrees Celsius, which is what's that? That's sort of like 42, 40-ish Fahrenheit. And that's the warm water that's available to melt the ice and in Antarctica. So there is one of my important research focuses is the transport of the towards the Antarctic continent and see how much ice it's melting. And there is a bunch of heat stored down there, which is actually contributing to the acceleration of the glacier melting in a lot of Antarctica, especially the part south of where we are.
Brian, I saw you took a glance there at the screen. Does it have a reading for the current ocean temperature?
So the current ocean temperature.
You want to grab the mic?
The current ocean temperature we're reading is -1.4 degrees Celsius is our sea surface temperature.
So that's in Fahrenheit?
It's about 30 degrees Fahrenheit.
There we go. Perfect. All right, Dwight, another question.
Sure. So Marie from Rhode Island has written in and asks, says, Noah wants to know if you've seen any narwhals on this trip.
All righty. So Noah wants to know if we've seen any narwhals on this trip, and I can take this one. No, we haven't, Noah. Narwhals are an Arctic species. So when I was on my trip up in the Canadian Arctic earlier in the summer, yes, we saw narwhals then. Well, we saw the backs of the narwhals, a pod of narwhals, as they were traveling away from the vessel that we were on, the Swedish icebreaker Odin. And so those are a species, again, that you see up north. We don't see them down here, but there are other whales. We did see I can't remember what peels. That's what they were. They were peels dolphins. I'd actually never heard of them before on our transit down. They were riding off the bow of the boat. But then down in Palmer Station, they also see humpback whales. And occasionally they've seen minke whales, which we have actually up on the northeast coast. We actually have humpback whales as well. But mostly what we saw down south animal-wise, a lot of seabirds when we were at Palmer Station, and penguins. So they have a lot of different species of penguins there. They have Adelies, they're the most common ones, with gentoos and chin straps, and then emperor penguins as well. And I don't know. I love narwhals, but penguins are equally endearing, I definitely think. Great question, Noah. Another question, Dwight.
Sure. So McGrath and Halverson from Florida ask, how do you have internet?
Ooh. All right. So they would like to know how we have internet.
That is a good question. We use satellite-based internet here. So up on the tower of this boat, there's this big radome, and it has a satellite dish that some fancy electronics and motors and stuff keep pointed right at the satellite, even though we're bouncing and rolling up and down in the seas. So we get streamed internet through that.
Yep. And then for this project, we actually kind of, so that it had a little bit more power, what the ship already has. So kind of gifted a little boosted internet, a little faster speed than what they may usually have. But we're able to then use that to connect with you all. And what you think of it with this telepresence technologies that we're using, it's very similar to what you have when you use FaceTime or if you use Skype. But instead of connecting with families and friends and saying hello, we're coming to you live from really fantastic places like Antarctica, or we're communicating with robots, remotely operated vehicles, ROVs that go down and explore the deep ocean. Using it for and applying it different ways, a little bit more stronger signal than maybe what you use on a regular basis. Great question. Dwight, do you have another one for us?
Sure. Yeah, I'll just add to the audience that's watching is what we're doing is certainly not easy. And even though we do have pretty decent bandwidth and internet connection to the ship, you'll notice that the live feed coming in from the ship does freeze at times, and there's some audio dropouts at times because they are rolling around on the ocean and thousands of miles away from any satellite that they're trying to communicate through. So a lot of challenges delivering this sort of programming. So Holly, yeah, there's another question coming in from Anderson County High School in Tennessee. How has this experience impacted your view on your career?
All righty, awesome. So the question from Anderson County High School is, how has this experience impacted your career? What are your thoughts?
I think my career, I sort of, in some respects, follow along. So my job is sort of to support the projects that the PIs or principal investigators bring in. So it's been a great experience to be down here and learn about this area. But I think James is probably better suited.
Maybe it's a little too early to say how this trip has affected my career, but I did have a chance to come down on the same crossing about 6 years ago, and I would say that had a huge impact on my career because it gave me a chance to kind of see the situation with the ice and the interactions with the ocean, and it really gave me a better feel for how we could use autonomous instruments in this area. We have the wave glider. I've also worked with subsurface profiling floats that I've been sending under the sea ice and also under glacial ice into the ocean cavity under the ice shelves, and it really kind of gave me the sort of inspiration that it could be done by coming down here. So that was actually one thing that really affected me a lot.
Yeah, and then for me, I would just like to say that the people that we met during these interactions that were participating, and then the people that we met at Palmer Station, it honestly blew my mind. And these people are so fantastic. And it really does take a special breed of individual per se to go down there and live with 40 plus other people for an entire season. But they all have such great stories and to tell. And I feel really lucky that I was able to be out here and connect with those people and then share those stories with with audiences such as yourselves during today's broadcast. It's just been a really fantastic experience meeting everybody on board the ship, other scientists, and I think it's definitely broadened my view of how we kind of view who's researching where and the type of work that's being done, especially in places like Antarctica. I think we have one question for one more time for one more question, Dwight.
Okay, Holly. Yeah, it's a good one. From Emma B. writes from Rogers High School in Newport, Rhode Island. What are you hoping to discover from your research?
Sure. All right. That is a fantastic question to end up with. So what are you all hoping to discover with your research?
So for the current project, there are some very specific goals that we have on whether we can use this particular type of instrument and what we need to do to make it work in the future. We also have much larger goals in how could we build autonomous instruments into a larger observing system that can continue to monitor the Antarctic and how the ocean heat transport and the atmospheric changes are responding to climate change. This is going to be going on for many years to come, but we're trying to get a better feeling about the predictions, and really we need to kind of get more solid predictions on how the Antarctic continent and the weather are going to respond. So that's really what I'm kind of trying to do with all of my research. Now, I don't know if Ryan has any other thoughts about what he's hoping to do.
I think from my perspective, it's really important to see sort of how our instruments respond to this environment. So see what changes we need to make them more robust and to last longer while they're down here.
Awesome. Well, that's all we have time for today. Thank you so very much to all of you, all 1,700 plus of you out there that connected with us live here on the Gould. Thank you to Dwight back at the Inner Space Center for helping filter those questions on through to us here to the ship. You did a great job, Dwight. Otherwise, have a fantastic Halloween. If you're trick-or-treating, be safe, but have fun tonight. And follow along if you can on social media. This expedition and other expeditions, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is where we're posting to. But again, we appreciate your time today, and happy Halloween from Polar Vortex and everybody else.
Bye.
Thank you.